This is Merideth Taylor, and I'm with the Unified Committee for African American Contributions Oral History Project, and I'm here at Elvare Gaskin's house, to interview her. And this is January 28th, and I'm going to start with the first question. What were the times like when you were a child? And you can start anywhere you like. You can think about how did you and your family live, basic things. What did you eat? What was your day like?
Okay, I can remember some things as early as 3 years old. And the most vivid thing in my mind at that age is the steamboat. The Dorchester and the what's the name of the boat? Anyway, they came into Miller's Wharf, and I remember these because my mother lived in Baltimore, and my grandmother and grandfather raised me because my father died before I was born. He died in February and I was born in March. And they would put me on the steamboat in care of the chambermaids to go to Baltimore to visit my mother during the summer. And my mother would meet me in Baltimore, the Light Street Wharf. That's where the boat would dock. I also remember coming back. The chambermaids took very good care of me, and I got the best of food on the boat. It was a very beautiful boat, and most of the time I did travel on the Dorchester. The other boat was the Northumberland. And I enjoyed those summers being able to stay with my mother.
What was your mother doing?
My mother was working at Johns Hopkins Hospital and going to school at night at the Dunbar High School in Baltimore. Then I would come back, and I remember that when I would come back, it would be real early in the morning, and that's how I got to really like shredded wheat. And they would always have cereal, shredded wheat for me that early in the morning when I came home. After then, times were, to me, was very good as a child because we had plenty of food. My grandfather always had a garden, always had raised hogs and chickens, and they would always get their food in for the winter, flour by the barrel, carry the corn up to which is now Charlotte Hall, and have it ground for cornmeal. And he also did worked in, I guess you'd call share gardening, with a man named Jeannie Jones, and it was he planted a lot of vegetables in which he sold, and my grandfather and some other men and the children would help work these gardens, and we also send corn and picked tomatoes. And my grandmother and another lady, Miss Martha Barnes, used to bake, make cakes and pies and rolls and sell at Scotland Beach and Point Lookout. There were hotels at both places, but there were also people who had summer cottages, and they would sell the baked goods to the people.
Were there how many people were working in that particular garden? You said share garden. Did it all belong to?
The one person. It belonged to Jones. He paid them for working, and then he would give them vegetables.
Were there
Also,
a lot of people working in that?
Most of the time it would be two families, because one family was a very large family. They had about 16, 17 children, and they worked in the garden. But I didn't do too much because my grandfather said I was too little, and I stayed home and fixed lunches and carried lunches to them.
You weren't too little for that.
I wasn't too little for that, but not to be in the gardens picking tomatoes and sending corn and doing those kinds of things.
How many years did that? Are you talking about? Span of years?
Well, it lasted until they were doing. It was going on when I had to leave the area to go to high school.
So
They were still doing in the summertime. This is what they did. In the wintertime, my grandfather and grandmother shucked oysters. And then in the summer they had these crops. And my grandmother also worked at Point Lookout Hotel, Scotland Beach Hotel, and for some of the people who had the summer cottages.
Well, what do you feel like times were better or worse than they are now, and why? You said there was good times, that you had good things to eat and you felt cared for.
Yes, always cared for, always kept clean. My grandmother did some sewing. She'd make my dresses and clothes for me to wear. And, well, now to say, times to me were better in this way. There was more community cohesiveness than there is now. Nobody wanted for food or even clothes for the children, because if other people in the community knew that it was a family that was in need, they would get together and help this family and see that they had food, see that the children had clothes. And if there was someone ill in the family, would always go and sit with this family and let the family have a chance to rest and sleep. At that time, doctors made house calls. And my grandmother was one that was always called on to help with the sick. She was also a midwife, and she delivered quite a few babies, black and white. Some of them are still living, and but the the cohesiveness was there because it was a small community. There weren't too many people who came in the community. They would be like my mother and aunts and uncles that worked away that would come back. There weren't too many strangers that came. Most of the strangers would come into the hotels and the cottages in the summertime, but then they would leave in the fall.
And were there families in need, when you're talking about that, was there a lot of difference economically between different families, or did families, tend to be at a similar economic level at those times?
Well, it was similar, but the larger families, like this family I was saying had 17, 18 children. There were times that they needed help because the mother didn't work, and it was just the father in the home, and the most that he did, that was all to do, would be to shuck oysters and work the farms in the spring, and the other occupation was oystering, crabbing, fishing, and those kinds of things. They were right here in the area. There weren't jobs that took you, way off. Now later, they went over in, what's it called, Rock Point in Charles County to shuck oysters. And then some people went to New Jersey to shuck oysters and to dredge on the boats. But most of it was, right here.
And did most families
an
do
area.
A combination of those things?
Yes.
To survive?
Yes. Like the people who oystered, fished. In the summer, crabbed, hard crab and soft crab. And they sold those. They sold those items, those food items, to the hotels, to people at that were in the cottages at Scotland Beach and Point of Cap.
And were there many midwives like your grandmother, or?
Yes, there were. You see, she was the only one in this area. There was one in St. Inigo's. It was a Carol. Then I know there was one in Lexington Park. She was a Clayton.
Were there white and black midwives, or?
The only ones I knew about were the black ones. I don't know if there could have been white ones, but I never heard of any because I knew my grandmother went to both black and white. And they wanted my grandmother to get her license as a midwife, and she wouldn't because the difference was if you were a licensed midwife, you had to go whether a doctor came or not. And my grandmother did not want to go, would not go without a doctor. Without a doctor.
Did she then tend to stay after the birth to help, or?
Yes, she went back. Sometimes I went down with her at night and stayed overnight, and then she'd go back and forth every day until, people were well.
Did those people that are still alive that she delivered know who delivered them?
I don't know, but several of them, I think several of them do, because I meet one or two, and then I used to see some of the mothers in the store, when I was much younger, and she'd say, you remember when you used to stay at my house? Your grandmother delivered my baby. And my mother cooked for a couple, a wedding that my grandmother brought into the world. So.
Okay. Well, this question is, what is your earliest memory? You were talking about the steamship. Is that
Yeah, that's my 3 years old is the
3,
yeah. 3 is the
Well,
oldest.
how many summers did you do that?
I did it about. Let me see. My mother moved to New Jersey. I did that until I was about 7 or 8 years old. And then after that, I still went to Baltimore with my grandmother because we always had to have a vacation.
Ah.
And my grandmother's brother, my great uncle, lived in Baltimore. She had 2 brothers that lived in Baltimore and 2 sisters that lived in Baltimore. And we would spend the whole summer in Baltimore.
As a vacation?
A vacation.
Where was you got the shredded wheat on the boat, or when you got home?
When I got home.
Okay. All right. Well, describe your relationship with siblings.
Didn't have any.
Didn't have any. Okay.
I didn't have a sibling until I guess I was about 9 or 10 years old. It wasn't a sibling. My aunt, Nanny Barnes, Marie Barnes, raised my cousin. His mother died of childbirth, and she only had boys. And the oldest boy was taking care of him. And my uncle wanted someone to take him. And she came from New Jersey and took him and raised him as their own child. So that was the first one I had, anybody did, yeah.
What church did you go to, your family back then?
Methodist. Well, it's really both, because my grandmother was Methodist, my grandfather was Catholic. At that time, they had to say or promise that their children would be brought up in the Catholic Church. So my mother and my aunts and uncle were brought up Catholic, even though they used to steal down to the Methodist Church.
So which church, though?
St. Luke. St. Luke, right up
St.
here.
Luke's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was called Scotland?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Scotland.
Okay. Okay. Well, what trips did you take? We talked about Baltimore. What other trips?
Well,
As a child.
As a child. Well, Baltimore, Anne Arundel County, because we had relatives in Anne Arundel County. As a child, mostly it was Baltimore and Washington, because my grandmother had a brother in Washington, and we used to visit them in Washington. So Washington, Baltimore, because if you went in the car, it took all day to get to Baltimore. Other than going in a steamboat, you were on the boat all night and docked in the morning in Baltimore. So
The roads were different.
yes, quite different.
Let's see, maybe we'll come back to that. How did your parents deal with health and illness? Well, you said that, and do you remember any special cures? Did your family have a medical doctor? You said that doctors made house calls.
Yeah, Dr. Bean. There was a Dr. Bean and a Dr. King. Those 2 doctors, I remember, and they made house calls. Dr. Bean was still making house calls when my first child was born.
And Dr. Bean was white?
Mm-hmm. Both of them were white.
What about any special cures? What about, did your parents or your family use any home remedies or special? Do they tend to take care of things themselves and use any home remedies?
Well, I don't know if castor oil is a home remedy.
I guess.
No, but they use that for colds. For fevers, I know they use brown paper dipped in vinegar and put it across the forehead.
Oh, so you just take brown paper, dip it in vinegar,
And vinegar,
put it across,
and put it across your forehead.
and leave it there for a while?
Leave it there for a while, and of course the fever would dry out the paper, and then they'd keep dipping and dipping until the fever went down. And Vaseline and sugar for coughs.
What would you do with that? Vaseline and sugar?
Take it, eat it.
Oh, that's another new one. Vaseline and sugar, and they give you spoonfuls of it?
And the spoonful of Vaseline and put sugar on top of it, coated with sugar. For earache, you use sweet oil, something like an olive oil, and they had my grandfather would go out in the early spring and get sassafras, and they'd peel it, make a tea out of it.
The root or bark?
Yeah, the bark.
Bark.
Sassafras, and make a tea out of it, and it was supposed to be very healthy for you in the spring and ward off, a lot of diseases. Would make you strong.
So that's quite a few.
Yes.
Did they do anything like a mustard plaster?
Yes, they
like
did mustard plasters and Vicks, and the mustard plasters they put on your chest and around your waist. Lemon and castor oil, and sometimes lemon tea with a little bit of, I guess, alcohol juice, something in it, and that would make you perspire and get the fever out.
Okay, so and the doctor came when there was something seriously wrong?
Yes, and there's something very serious that you call for the doctor, and he'd come and give you medicine, say you have to stay in, or like with the flu or pneumonia.
Okay, well, we've talked about a couple of things that you did as a child, but what did you like to do the most and why? Activities.
Well, really, there wasn't too much to do other than church. And with the Sunday school, we'd have lawn fetes, they were calling it. Build these, had 4 posts and would put tires and let the tires burn out on the church ground, and we'd have booths, and we would sell lemonade. We had fortune-telling booths and little arts and crafts that maybe the ladies had made, and we'd sell those. And there was May procession, a flag. We just had it at a church. Wrapping the maypole.
Oh, wrapping the maypole.
Wrapping the maypole. And that was,
For spring.
yeah.
Now, the posts and the tires, we need video.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the point of, you put the tires on the 4 posts?
Mm-hmm. And they'd light them because that was
the point of burning the tires?
because that was the light. We didn't have electricity.
Okay, that was the light.
That was the light outside for the lawn fete.
Oh.
And they'd sell lemonade and, sandwich, hot dogs and things like that. And then we used to have promenades.
And the promenade was, describe the promenade?
Yes, we go in the, we had that in the hall, and it was similar to a square dance, and two partners, and then we had basically a drum, accordion, and maybe sometime a guitar would be the music for the promenade. And when the set was out, then your partner carried you to the table and treated you to lemonade, 5 cents a glass, slice of cake, and those kind of things is what we had.
So
what you do for that?
So the promenade is a dance with music?
Yes, with
live
music. Mm-hmm. And then every year we had, the school was a county sponsored field day. And we would go to one location. All the black children would go to one location, and most of that was Banneker, where Banneker is now. And we had dodgeball. There were dodgeball teams, relays, and we would play against, teams, and as many teams as there were schools that would have a dodgeball team, and then we would, whoever was in first place or second place, third place.
Is that pretty much like the modern day field days that schools have still?
But it was, well, it wasn't exactly, because now they do it within their school. Between and this was the whole county, and people used to come home for field days from far ways, New Jersey, for the field day.
So it's a big event.
It was a big event. It started in the morning and lasted all day long.
And did you excel at any particular event yourself?
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball.
Mm-hmm. And relays. The relay race, we used to have the spoon race. We had the flag race where you put the flag in a Coke bottle and then run back. We had teams for those.
Sounds like fun. What chores did you have to do?
Oh, boy.
It's a long list.
Well, I had chores to do. As I said, my grandmother and grandfather used to shuck oysters, and a lot of times she'd get up around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, wash her clothes before she went to work, and I would help her. That time we had 3 tubs. The one with the soap and the water on the washboard. Then there was the clear water, you rinsed them in. Then there was the blue water. Had bluing that you put in there. That was the last one to make them real, real white. I helped with that. Before I went to school in the morning, I made my bed. I cleaned the living room, put oil in the lamps, washed the lampshades. If it looked like it was going to storm, then I picked up chips, brought in wood before I went to school. And, of course, always had dishes to wash. At 9 years old, I was standing on a box washing clothes on a washboard.
So did you have free time, so to speak?
Oh, yes, I had free time. When I came home in the afternoon from school, most of the time, especially in the spring and summer, my grandmother would be home, and I used to play to myself. I'd throw the ball up on the house, and I would be calling each child's name. I'd be playing dodgeball, and I'd be hitting, but the and in the springtime we used to go. My grandmother used to go visiting after we had dinner, and she'd always visit somewhere where there were children, and I'd play with the children while she was visiting, with the adults. So we had plenty of, I had plenty of free time, even though, I had chores. And I cleaned, more older I got, more chores I had, cleaning the other parts of the house and scrubbing the floors.
How do you feel your parents treated you?
Oh, beautiful. I just had a good time. I really enjoyed my life. Sometime my cousin would come down from Baltimore and spend the summer with us. And of course they were city children, and they knew all the little fancy things to do. And I didn't get in trouble until my cousin came down. One of my cousins came down from Baltimore, and she said that I had done something that I had not done, and my grandfather saw her do it, and then my grandmother was going to whip me, the little goldenrod switch, and then my grandfather told her that I hadn't done it, and then she started after my cousin, and we had peach trees, pear trees, apple trees, cherry trees in the yard, and she started running all through these trees saying, hollering, police, police. And my grandmother says, no police here.
To save her.
Yes.
So if they did discipline you, it would be, you said a goldenrod?
Goldenrod. So the little bushes you see, them with the little goldenrod, little yellow flowers,
Okay.
good size.
Like a forsythia or something.
Yeah, like that. And she would take all the flowers off of it and ship them. But I didn't get many of those.
What were you disciplined for? Do you remember anything?
I didn't like to wash dishes. And my grandmother would say, you have the dishes washed. She'd go to a church meeting, and I'd be there with my grandfather. And she said, I want these dishes washed when I get back. I hated washing dishes. I still do. And if they weren't washed, sometime I'd be gone. I'd go to bed. I'd be in the bed, and she'd get me out of the bed, and I'd come in and wash those dishes.
What did they do with you that you remember best when you think about things you did with your parents?
Well, really, the vacations and visiting, going to visit people where there were children. I liked doing that, and my grandmother had a Bible history, and on Sunday afternoon, if there wasn't any services in the afternoon or evening, she'd read me the Bible history stories, and as I said, visiting other families where they were children, so I could play with them and visit. Going to Baltimore, I enjoyed, visiting my uncles with my grandmother.
Did your grandparents live in the same house with you?
The house I was born in.
In the house, yeah. So, what were all the adults that were there?
My grandmother, my grandfather,
And you?
and me.
Okay. And your mother was in...
Either in Washington working, Baltimore working, or in New Jersey.
And what about your father?
My father died
When?
February, and I was born in March.
So you never really...
I didn't know my father. My mother got married again when I was 9 years old.
And then did your mother's second husband live down here, or did he?
They both lived. They lived away. They worked away until they came and worked at a hotel in the summertime. He was the head waiter, and she was the head chambermaid, and at Point Lookout Hotel. And I guess when I was about 11, 12 years old, I worked for Congressman Dyer. Down at the college. There was another lady working there, Mrs. Louise Burrell, then she was, and she did the cooking, and I did the dusting. And
was that at a separate cottage?
At a separate cottage, yeah. At a separate cottage. And washed dishes.
So how old were you when you first worked for a wage?
I was about 12 years old.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your formal schooling. How did you get to school?
Well, I walked to school because I walked to school. I walked to elementary school. I started school when I was 5 years old. Because my grandmother boarded teachers, and they would sneak me down to the school, and unless the superintendent or visitor was coming, I went to school every day.
And what was your classroom like?
It was a one-room classroom with the long benches where three could sit in a seat, and had a pot-belly stove right in the middle of it. And it's the barber shop that's right up here by St. Luke's Church. That was the elementary school.
Okay, so it's still there. And that's called the Scotland School.
Mm-hmm. That was called the Scotland School.
Do you remember who was your favorite and your least favorite teacher, and why?
My favorite teacher was Nerissa Louise Taylor. And she was just so outgoing and made lessons really come alive. She used a lot of art, like she did the layout. We did the layout for a geography lesson of St. Mary's College, St. Mary's Seminary at that time, in clay and plaster Paris. And just everything she did was picturesque. You could learn to do by doing. And she's the one that really started me thinking about being a teacher. She inspired me that much. The least...
And how many, did you have her then for a number of years?
Yes, I had her. I graduated from her in 7th grade.
So you had her all that time?
Mm-hmm. And the niece was a Miss Hall from Ohio.
That visual there.
she was she was all right. She was a good teacher, but she was peculiar, very peculiar. My grandmother would fix her lunch, and she'd put it in a brown bag and carry it on her arm. And she sort of was an old maid, or leaning toward being an old maid. And, children were like sticks. She didn't have any humor or anything. Everything was just so straight. And you want to go to the bathroom, which was outside. If you went in at 9 o'clock in the morning, you didn't come out until 12. And she was just, I guess she was strict and it was good, but she had a different personality from Miss Talfera.
What about your least and most favorite subject, and why?
I loved English. I wanted to be an English teacher. I loved reading and math, geography, history. I liked it all right, but I would say that would probably have been my least at that time.
Did you do a lot of reading?
I did a lot of reading.
A lot of books. And did you have easy access to books?
Yes, because the teachers that boarded at my grandmother's house would bring in and they'd ask me what I wanted for my birthday or what I wanted for Christmas. I'd say books. And they'd give me books, and then I had a lot of books in the school, and I'd read those. I skipped a grade because at that time you could hear what was going on in the next grade, and I was there at 5 years old. I never was in first grade. So
you were pretty much surrounded by teachers all the time.
Yes, most of my life I was.
What were your dreams of becoming as a young adult? Did you think then about becoming a teacher?
I always wanted to be a teacher.
Were there other parts of your dream of what you wanted to be, what you wanted to do?
Well, other than being a teacher, I wanted to be an English teacher. I wanted to have been able to gone to Hampton because I wanted to be a high school English teacher. And of course, at that time, my mother wasn't, able to send me to Hampton. At least because she paid for my high school from the beginning. When I went to Cardinal Gibbons, she paid for my going there. At that time, it wasn't that expensive, but she had to pay for it. But when I went to high school in Pamunkey, the county paid for it because they didn't have any place for me to go to high school here. So they had, just like they do now, when children transfer from another state or another county, they have to pay a tuition. The parents have to pay a tuition unless they have a county-based address. But when they come in like that, they have to pay tuition.
They couldn't charge you?
Not me.
Right.
They charged the county. but my mother had to pay for my living there in the dorm. I went there when I was 13. And, of course, there was a fee for my being there, food and board, sleeping and, all that. Until I finished high school.
And there wasn't after 7th grade, right? There wasn't a public...
There wasn't a public facility.
Okay. As a teenager, did your parents let you court?
Well, as a teenager, most of the times when I went anywhere, I went with my mother and my aunt. When they were, around, and they had dances at St. Peter, Claver, there was a hall that 4th of July, Labor Day, they would have the dances, festivals, and they would take me there. When they were not here, as I mentioned before, it was the activities at the church that the young people had, and there was some young gentlemen who would come down from Ridge and farther up the road down to the church, and they would walk me home behind my grandmother, and if I got a little too far behind, she called me, Elvare, where are you? And they used to tease me. They used to tease me awful about that. I really didn't start courting until I was in college. I mean, really, say I had a boyfriend. I was in college.
So there weren't really young men that came to your house when you were living at home to visit you?
Well, they would come because, see, I was from 13, I was in and out and wasn't only home. I was only at home at holidays. And there were some young men who would come, but not when I was 13. They would, that's it, I was finishing high school.
And what was it like when you first went out on your own? Well, in a sense, you kind of did that early in some ways, but when you really moved away from home, was that would you say that
My first job. Well, when I first moved away from home, I was 13, and from high school to college. And my mother was in Washington then, and on most weekends I'd catch the train from Bowie and go into Washington. They were working at a club in Bethesda, and my mother was doing the cooking, and my dad, which was my stepfather, was chauffeuring. And I'd go into Washington just about every weekend.
What was your money situation like then? You were either at school or pretty much with them? What was your money situation like?
Well, it was sort of slim. I had to really budget, and my clothes, my mother got my clothes. Well, I came home in the summer. I worked at Pornogate Hotel as a chambermaid. And that's where I got my first Social Security card. And the lady was a German Jew. And she paid my Social Security for me. And my money I saved to help buy my clothes to go back to school. And those that I wasn't able to get, my mother and dad got for me. and my grandmother helped me, and my mother saw that I had, you know, as well as could be expected. I had spending change, and every time I came home, I carried back a care package with a lot of food, as all other girls did, and my roommates did, and we had extra food. We had movies and things right there at the school, and holidays I go into Washington, and we'd go downtown, my mother, and she'd buy me clothes, and all that. But things didn't cost like they do now, and I was pretty well dressed, as well. There were some who were richer. So there were some who were richer, and had more and maybe better clothes, but I was adequately taken care of.
And then what happened when you graduated?
From Bowie?
Yeah.
When I graduated from Bowie, I graduated from a 3-year, it was a normal school. And they were putting on the 4th year. The next year was going to be a college. But my mother she had really worked, even though I had a nice stepfather who really helped. She sort of felt that, I was her responsibility. And I just felt I wanted to go to work and try to help her, and then go back to school after I had gone to work. And that's what I did. I got a job the first year I came out of school, and I taught. It was it was in Oroville. It was at the Gravelly Knoll School, one-room school, just like I'd gone to in the elementary school.
And what year was that?
1939.
How did you get to your work?
Walked. I didn't have a car, and where I was boarding, I got $65 a month. I paid $20 for room and board. And I would have to it was way back on a farm, and I would have to have come out to what is now Route 235 in a car to get around to Oroville, but I didn't have a car. So I walked about 2.5 miles to school. And sometimes when it was snowing and bad, they couldn't see. When I got to the first barn, they couldn't see the top of my head.
And how long did that take you then, especially if it wasn't very good weather out?
It took me about an hour. And then as it became more frequent to me, I could make a little better time.
Well, we've already talked about why you chose that work. Was it difficult?
Yeah, I had one-room classroom, first to 7th grades. And I wouldn't call it difficult because I loved it. And some of the students, 7th grade students, stood over top of me, especially the boys.
Yeah, how tall are you?
I'm about 4'11.5", and some of the 7th grade boys were 5'5" and almost 6 foot tall. And some of them are kind of hard to handle. And I only had to have one child expelled the whole 6 years I taught at that school. And he had brought a knife to school and had the knife out. And they, saying, Miss Smith, Stanley has a knife. And I went, he was sitting in the middle, the same long seats with three in a seat. And I asked the boy on the end to get out, to move out. And I just grabbed him by his collar and backed him out the door. And after I'd done it, I was scared to death. And I called then they were called truant officers. Now they're people personnel workers. And I called her and told her what had happened. And she said, I'll be there in the morning. And she came in the morning and she expelled him.
Have we talked about all the different kinds of work that you did before teaching?
Let me see, because I was down at I worked at the cottage for Congressman Dyer, and I did chambermaid work before I started teaching while I was still going to school. But after I started teaching, in the summertime, I'd come down and help my aunt who was working for John Bean at the restaurant on the water. And I'd come and wait tables. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you'd like to say about what teaching's meant to you?
Oh, it's just, it has meant so very much. The fact that I loved doing what I was doing, and to see children really grasp information and go on with it. And I think the most rewarding, all of it has been rewarding. The most rewarding has been the years I spent with special ed.
And why is that?
To see those children that were limited be able to grasp enough information to be able to work on their own, to get a job and to work. And also what was gratifying is that several of my students taught in the same building with me while I was still teaching there. I had several other children that had graduated, had gone to Bowie, graduated, came back in the county and taught. And that was, I just was so happy that I had a part of their lives.
Well, you talked about, which I'm amazed, that you remembered how much you made for that first.
Oh yes.
First job. And what about the question is how much money did you make? So it might be interesting to compare what you were making when you started and when you finished, if you want to.
Oh, geez.
But that's not necessary. So what were you making there at that first?
$65 a month. And by the time they took out, I got $62.50. By the time they took out the retirement and all that. And I paid $20 to the lady I was boarding with a month. So they left me $42.
Okay. What do you remember about your weddings? Changing subjects here.
Okay.
When did you marry?
and I've been married twice.
Oh.
I married in 1941 was my first marriage. It was the lady that I was boarding with. It was her son. He seemed to have wanted a marriage of convenience, and I was too young to know the difference. I stayed married 6 years, and then we separated and eventually got a divorce, and then I remarried, and this is when my children were born.
And how did you meet your, well, we know you met your first husband. What about, how did you meet your second husband?
On the Greyhound bus. I was going to Washington. At that time, there were no beauticians here. So I was going to Washington to get my hair done. And this young man was on the bus. And we started talking. He knew my aunt, he knew my mother. My mother had moved home then. She was living here. And he knew all of my family. And we started talking. And then he said, maybe when you get back in the county, maybe I could take you to a movie. And I said, maybe. I didn't see him anymore for about 3 weeks. And then I was staying with I had moved back home and was staying with my grandmother. And a knock came on the door, and this young man. And we went out together, I guess, about a year and a half, and then we married. He was here from Florida, on the base, working on the base as a cement finisher.
How had he gotten to know your family?
Because he was here. He came here when the base first started, and I wasn't living here then. So he got to know my aunt, my mother, and my dad, and all of them.
Did the people that came to work on the base then mix a lot with the community? And was that the usual thing, that they got to know the people? These people met the community.
Okay. They had a bar, and they also boarded several of the men who moved in the area to work on the base. And a lot of them, stayed other places because there wasn't any place on the base for them to stay. And at that time, my husband was living in Washington. And rather than travel back and forth to Washington, they boarded at different homes.
Okay. Why did you decide to get married?
He was just a nice young man, and I was still young, and I didn't want to be alone. He was just a nice person. He was older than me, but he was very, very protective and very, very loving.
What was your honeymoon like?
Which one?
Did you? Oh well, either one. What were your honeymoons like?
Okay, my honeymoon, we went to New Jersey and Delaware. So we spent our honeymoon, and it was very nice.
Sort of a traditional.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Big question. What has your family life been like? Your marriage, your relationship with your spouse, relationship with your children and your grandchildren? How would you describe your family life?
Well, it's my relationship was with my husband was very good. We of course we didn't see eye to eye to everything, but we always worked things out. Everything was always worked out, even with the children. When the children came, um, there was the punishment or what have you. If there had to be one, a punishment. If I said no, then it was no. If they wanted to do something. If he said no, then it was no. We were always on the same wavelength as far as the children were concerned, and later on they respected that. Of course, there were children, and they tried to play one against the other, but they found out that they couldn't get anywhere doing that, and we really had a very good relationship as a family. My oldest boy went to, now they call it UMass, whatever, that time was Maryland State, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore.
Oh,
Okay. He went there, and he graduated from there. And Alonzo went to electronics school in Baltimore, and he graduated from there. And Bernadette was at Morgan when my husband died. She hadn't graduated. And the children have been protective of me. Not because they're my children, but I couldn't want any better children anywhere.
When was that? When your husband passed away?
73.
And she was going to school.
She was at Morgan.
And your oldest son's name?
Robert James.
And what does he do?
He's the personnel supervisor, Board of Education in Prince George County.
And Bernadette and Alonzo both live in St. Mary's County?
Yes. And Laitha, and my baby girl.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. They all live in St. Mary's.
And, okay. And what does she do? Is she in Bernadette?
Well, Bernadette, oh boy, what does she do? Bernadette is in personnel at Southern Maryland Electric. It's a Smeckle, but that's not the name of her job.
Oh.
I know she's in personnel there. That's Smeckle. And my baby girl, she is, not as smart. I said she was my, I don't know what I call it, but she didn't grasp as fast as the others. And she finished high school, and she worked on base for quite a few years. And then she married. She has 2 children. Her husband walked off and left her. I bought a home in Southampton because it was close to the church, and there was a lady who lived there who was very close to her. and she's living there. She's now looking for work.
But really, the relationship with all of your children is
Oh,
good.
oh yes, just very good. Alonzo didn't want me to go to Israel. He said, "Mom, they're doing this over there, and they're doing that over there." And I said, "Well, let's leave it in the Lord's hands."
Okay. And what about your grandchildren? Do you want to say anything about your relationship with your grandchildren? Do you see them all?
Oh yes, I have 9 grandchildren. One grandchild, his daughter, is teaching in Prince George's, and she's getting her master's in the spring in counseling. She wants to be a counselor. And Alonzo's daughter is graduating from Bowie in the spring. And she has this computer. She wants to work with that. Then I have who's the next one? Bernadette's children, I think, are the next. And of course, she has a son that's he's a junior, Great Mills High School. Marcus, 7th grade, Spring Ridge. Marissa is 3rd grade at Ridge School. And my daughter up in Lexington Park has 2 children. They go to Carver. One's in the 3rd grade, one's in the 5th grade. And it's a beautiful relationship, between all of the grandchildren. And at least the whole family. Marissa thinks she owns me. But
what's the 3rd grader's name at Carver?
Sierra Smith.
Just wanted to find her. Okay, let's see, where are we? What part has religion played in your life? What church do you attend? And we'll just start from there.
Okay. I now attend Zion United Methodist Church, and religion plays a major part of my life. I was the lay member to the annual conference for several years, and now I'm an alternate lay member to the conference. I'm a president of the adult choir. I'm chairman of our worship committee. I'm a lay speaker and a lay member, lay leader of the church. And I just go, and I belong to the United Methodist Women's Group, and I just go all over with them, Missouri, Kansas, to different conventions. And without the Lord in my life, I don't know what would happen. I don't know what would have happened when my husband died in 1973, with a daughter still in college, a daughter still in school, elementary and grade school. Bernadette wanted to stop school and go to work. And I said no, because the Lord he would make a way for us. And so I came home on Sunday morning from church, and the porch was not closed in then. And I sat right on the cement steps and asked the Lord, show me the way. What's going to happen? How am I going to do it? And I just asked him, I said, whatever you reveal to me, this is the way I'll go. So that Monday morning, I called Morgan, and well, they knew what had happened. And I said, asked them if they didn't have any kinds of scholarships or anything, that could help my daughter finish school. And they said, no, but I tell you, you have a bank in your area that will help you, will help your daughter. And I thanked them very much, and then I got on the phone and started calling. I called First National in Lexington Park first, and they told me they did have a program, but it wasn't in Lexington Park, it was in Leonardtown. So then I called Leonardtown, and they told me indeed they did have a program, and I told them what had happened, and I wanted my daughter to finish school. She wanted to finish school, and he said, when will she be home again? Right now I don't remember when the next holiday was coming up, but I told him, and he said, when she comes home, have her come. And I said, do I need to come with her? He said, no, have her come. And she went up there, and they approved money for her to finish school, for that year. And then the next fall, she went back, and they told her that she did not have to start paying the money back until she had gotten the job in which she graduated for. And, of course, that didn't happen right away. She substituted at Green Holly. She was a long-term substitute at Green Holly for a good while. And then she went into Semeco, and she applied. And they were rebuilding or redoing something to the offices. And she met with the lady, and she told her that she had a job and not to get discouraged because they were renovating and had to do some things. And just about every 2 weeks she would call and say, is she all right? What is she doing? Tell her she will still be hired. And eventually she was hired. She's been there ever since. So I know that it was my faith and God's help that made this come about. And everything that I have tried since my husband died, it has always come out all right. I'm not saying I always did it all. My children helped me, quite a bit. And whatever I wanted to do, I talk it over with them, and they said, well, Mama, we can do it. And without the Lord, I wouldn't be anything. I don't know where I'd be or what I'd do. And I had that faith that with Him all things are possible.
Well, what community activities do you participate in? Are there any you don't participate in? Okay, Well, church activities, I think you talked about. What other club activities, professional organizations?
Well, I'm a member of the Hospital Auxiliary. I'm the membership chairman of the Hospital Auxiliary. I am a link. I can't remember. See?
Well, the Retired Teachers.
Retired Teachers Association, past president of the Retired Teachers Association. I'm a member of SALT, seniors. It's an organization that helps seniors become aware of their surroundings and how they can be helped. It's under the aging, and the sheriff's department is a part of it also. Triad, and under Triad is SALT. Seniors, can't remember those names, but anyway, I am a member of that. As I said, the church activities, I remember the activities in the church. I'm always gone. Why am I always gone?
Well, that's quite a few. But what about NAACP?
NAACP.
Could I ask you a question about that?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that NAACP used to be more active as a group here in the county than right now. Do you have any comments on that? Does that seem true?
Well, seemingly they I don't know, most of the younger people, or what, the NAACP was started in this county by minister Reverend Richard Johnson, and seemingly all the church people joined the NAACP, and now it seems that even if they have joined, they don't participate as they should until something happens. I don't know why. I have no idea why they don't do it. I'm past matron of the Eastern Star. And most of my activities really are around the church area, and
And family.
yeah, and family, doing that.
Well, here's a big question. How do you feel about life in general today? In what ways is it different from the way it used to be? Is the quality of life better or worse now? Why? Whatever comes to your mind about that.
In some instances, life is better where there's been much improvement. In the way of life, yet I don't see the closeness of communities as they used to be. Maybe it's because the communities have grown so much larger, and many people moving in the different areas, but it doesn't seem to be the caring in the communities that it used to be. Everybody's going on their own little turf. I'm going this way, and if I'm here in need, well, I'm sort of still going. It doesn't seem that to be that closeness.
What were some of the improvements you're talking about? Ways that things are better, you said.
Oh, well, for instance, jobs. They're better jobs. Improvement in the area, building, living quarters. Living. More people have homes, buying homes. A lot of times, then people lived on people's farms, had a house on the farm. They didn't own their own homes. And this, I'm glad to see a lot of young people, are becoming homeowners. And, but I just, sometimes wonder why, they just seem to get so far apart as far as caring for one another.
Are you thinking about people in general, American society, or thinking specifically in terms of a part of society or this community or African Americans?
I'm thinking about American society, Afro-Americans, and this community, St. Maurice County.
Are people, one of the questions is, are people different from the way they used to be? And so you see definitely that difference in that people don't seem to
just
connected.
Don't feel connected, as they did. If somebody's sick, so-and-so's sick and in the hospital, or they're sick, and how long have they been sick? I'm sorry, but they go on their merry way. It's like one time, if somebody was sick, who's home with those children? Who's doing for those children? How they're being taken care of? What can I do to help them?
Especially concern for the children.
Yes.
Do you think that the gains of the civil rights movement or the civil rights movement has had an effect on the cohesiveness, the kind of thing you're talking about in the African American community, or has that impacted it? If so, how?
It has somewhat. In some areas, it has brought them closer together, even if it's just by just by talking about it. Just by talking about it. But and it has, in some instances, it has brought them closer, but got a long ways to go.
Well, I guess I should back up and say, do you think that that there are gains?
There are gains. There are some gains. Yeah, there are some gains, but there's room for a lot more.
And what do you see as some of those what you consider some of those gains, and what do you see as things that most need to be done?
Oh, well, back to the caring and sharing, and being more close, like a close-knit family. I'm not talking just about Afro-Americans. I'm talking about all people. I dread to think that the Afro-Americans would, they would all come together and they would share and leave everybody else out. I'd like to see people getting along together as people regardless of color, sharing with one another regardless of color, doing things together, regardless of color. I know, Father, I don't think you were here. I don't know if you were not. Father, I can see him so plain. Well, anyway, his name will probably come to me. He tried a first district community organization for caring and sharing. And it was, it was going rather nicely, but it seemed to be going down the path of, I'll share with you. It was not spreading out to the community. All right, he said, "Oh, sure, come to my house for coffee at Christmas time. Come to my house for coffee." And of course, she didn't think I was going to come to her house for coffee, but I went there Christmas morning for coffee. But she never returned. She never came to my house. And it seems as though they were saying, well, at least one lady said, I don't think white and black should marry. It wasn't for that. It was for coming together, learning more about each other. Because I feel that the race relations bit is because of no communication. You don't know how I am, what I feel, until you can talk to me, I can talk to you, and we can see that maybe we have the same common ideas, the same things. We're still striving for the same thing. But
well, that was okay. That was the dream and the goal with integration of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of the main, right?
Yes.
Well, one was parity.
Yes.
Sensible equality, but the other one was that white children and black children
Mm-hmm.
would be in the same school.
Yes.
And they would get to know each other. And that out of that, better interaction.
Yes.
Better racial equality. Well, a lot of people feel very, a lot of African Americans feel, especially I think, that that hasn't happened, and in fact that the African American students are being, there's a disservice to them because they're not getting the kind of nurturing and support that they did from their black teachers in the black schools, and that I think a lot of people feel basically that this, what was hoped for with integration and the students being together has not in fact paid off. So now it seems that we're at this point where people are thinking, well, segregation obviously was not good. Integration hasn't worked. Okay, so what do you think about that?
I think one of the major problems is that we don't have enough black teachers in the schools. I don't know for what reason, but some of the white teachers are afraid of the Afro-American students. They seem to be afraid. And then some of them um, uh, teach, and they um, are not getting to the black students. One thing is the curriculum. There's not enough, especially in the history and the sciences, about black people that have really made it. And some of the black students get where all we do is talk about the white people. You know, haven't we only 1 month out of a year we talk about the black people and their achievements, and that's the month of February. So I don't. I mean, I see it that you can't point your finger and say, "Well, this is the problem right here." The problem is sort of multiplied. There's more than one thing that has to happen to be integrated in the curriculum, with the teachers, and with the students. Because, these things that are happening in February, that has happened, the things that are continually happening with both black and white, say with the athletes, major things are happening. The Colonel Davis, the stamp, they're coming out with a stamp for him, Brigadier General stamp. Why isn't this in the books?
So there's still a lot that needs to be done.
Lot needs to be done. A whole lot needs to be done. And I think this will make the children feel more comfortable. The children are more comfortable, and the teachers will be more comfortable and feel that they can really teach and reach the students.
Of course, a lot of the schools really are kind of de facto segregated right now too, because of the housing patterns.
And the
So
redistricting, all of that. Like Hollywood Elementary, very few black students in that school.
Even around here.
Yeah, very few. Very few in the classes. And it's really not pure integration. And they keep, every once in a while they redistrict, and more they redistrict, more they segregate the students.
What do you think are the biggest obstacles to the kinds of things that need to be done, like the curriculum revision?
Money, I guess. The finances. They have a priority. I mean, if they have something, this is what this is what will be done. And then they don't have the say like they used to have the say. The school, the superintendent, and the Board of Education, they sort of have to do what the commissioners dictate to them to do, where to spend their money. And so it's just a vicious cycle.
And there's less and less money.
And less money.
Do you know what the proportion of black teachers is in St. Mary's County to white teachers?
No, I don't know, but I know it's a poor ratio. Very poor ratio.
Back to the script. Okay, so we were talking about people different than they used to be, and you talked about that quite a bit. What about teenagers specifically? It says, how are the teenagers in St. Mary's County today different from when you were a teen?
Oh boy.
And what do you think has caused these changes?
Um, they're quite different. One thing is caused is there are so many one parent families, and I really think that is one of the major, causes. And even in the two parent families, they both have to work to make it. And then the children are sort of left on, the latchkey children. Wherein, when I was coming up, when I came home, my grandmother and grandfather was home. A lot of these children let themselves in, and then they're there maybe at 2 hours, maybe 3 hours before the parents come. Discipline is another lack of discipline, because the children know now, unless they started from the cradle with the discipline, not harsh discipline, I don't mean beating or anything, but to, when I say no, that means no. And and now they've, come out with this, you can't touch them. You can't look at them real hard. And then they've gotten to know that if the mother, if you hit me, I'm going to report you. Or if you don't let me do this, I'm going to report you. And I think that has been the really failing of our young people in the society. This discipline issue, and the one parent families.
Or the parents are away so much.
And the parents are away. The latchkey children, they just come in, they do what they want to do. Now, I'm not saying all of them are like that, but the majority of them that, have this freedom. And it is, and I think that the taking the discipline away from the teachers and the principals, and even from the parents, because some of them have maybe there's been a father in the home, and the father has gone off, and now the mother's left there with this discipline to do. And if they're boys, and even if they're girls, some of them tell them what they can do and what they won't do. And it's just, I think, and when I was coming along, you did it. There was no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You did what you were told to do.
Do you have any ideas about why that's changed so much? In terms of just, are the parents just not there to do the disciplining, or did they choose not to do it for some reason?
Well, some of them choose not to do it. Some of them are weak, especially mothers with boys. Some of them are afraid. And
so maybe there's something in the children themselves that's really different.
Yes, that's different. It's the way they're being brought up. Little children. When I was taking a counseling course at Bowie, we went over to, one of our assignments was to go over to Crofton and talk to parents. And some of the parents would say they had 2-year-old children that they couldn't do anything with. And I just got my mouth open and I said, I don't believe what I'm hearing. 2 years old. I thought it was bad enough for kindergarten children to be expelled. But they're talking about 2-year-old children, and see, this is where it's starting. Down so young.
I mean, was that recently or way back?
Oh, that was back in the what was it, when I come into people personnel. That was back in the 70s.
Okay, so it was,
It was back in the 70s. And then at the was it Lisa this morning? If she was talking about children bullying, being bullied at school, and children are afraid to go to school. The real little, and the little ones. And here was a little first grader that was being expelled. Now there's something wrong somewhere. See, when we came along, discipline was handled in the home. The child wasn't sent to school for the teacher to discipline. If this was done in the home, and I think there's been a fallacy in upbringing and the way children are taught in the home now. There are so many things. They're allowed to do so many things. They have too much freedom. Number one, starting with the TV. And when it's just one parent family, they don't know what the children are looking at. They don't know what they're seeing. And they have to work. So I think it's the home. It's in the home. It's the home situation. It's from out of the cradle, out of the crib. It's now, I'll wait until you're 3 or 4. But you can't wait that long anymore. You can't wait. They didn't wait with us.
So part of it's lack of time they spend with them.
Yes. It could be that. And then when they go to school, if we went to school and we came back, say we were punished at school, when we got home, we got punished again. And don't come back. Don't say, I didn't do this. But now they come to school and say, my mom said you better not hit me. My mom said this. My mom said the other. And then this is what is frightening teachers. This is what is frightening.
The parents and the teachers are on
Opposite sides. Opposite sides. There isn't any working relationship between the parents. They'll be glad when your children get out of school, because she visited the school. She asked for conferences with them. Explain this to me. Why isn't this happening? What can I do to make it happen? And once the parents used to go to the PTA meetings. The PTA meetings have taken, once the PTA meetings was for the parents. What can we do to make the school better? The teachers would tell them, we'd like this happen in our classrooms. But now they've gone off on psychology and philosophical things. Parents don't understand what they're talking about, so they don't go. Because the PTAs in elementary schools used to be packed. They used to be packed in the high schools. Parents came to find out what was going on and what they could do to help. They built schools like that. The first Jobbersville school was built. It was done by the parents. Children bought bricks. They had a brick contest. And they said some of the students were taking bricks out of their parents' chimneys to to build us first Jobbersville High School. Parents and teachers work together. Um, One thing that it seemed sort of harsh a lot of work at that time, but I said, I don't think that should have been taken out. The teachers had this register that we used to keep, the old register. We had to visit each child's home twice a year, and we had to check that we had visited that home. Uh, Things are better now that they have breakfast for some of the children, but some of those children came to school with nothing to eat. So how were they going to learn? If you can get in that home and see what's going on, get a feel for what's happening in that home, then you can better teach that child.
It's almost like, again, the lack of connection.
Yes. Yes, it's it's just no communication between the parents and the teachers. And I'm not saying it's all the teachers' fault, because parents have to, you have to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on with my child. I'd have to know. And when the report cards come home, it's the same thing. They don't, try to get a conference with the teachers to find out why this child has a C or a D or an especially an E. It has to go when school closes, when the time's for the last report card. Then that's when they get anxious. Is my child not going to pass? Why isn't my child going to pass? From September to June, they haven't been concerned about it at all.
It's just so much like our students, I just
I mean, it's just, and then when Bernadette didn't get any answers, she went to the superintendent or to the supervisor. Those in high school. But
there aren't many parents like that.
they aren't. I don't know if they, but you can't be too busy for your children. You can't get too busy for them. They can't raise themselves. Many of them are.
We're not taking care of our children
No,
in this country.
that's.
Okay. Are race relations different today in the county? How and why? The other questions are, what was segregation like? Were you ever afraid of a group or a person practicing hate?
I think race relations has come a long way, and I think the reason is because of the people coming in. They have helped change race relations. I know some people have been changed. Some people come, well, I never knew the difference between white and black. I came from a community or a state or a county where we all just, was one paper. We didn't see color. And I know there are some people that have moved in the county that are like that. And segregation was, it was really tough. It was, and the fact that they went from the churches where it shouldn't have been. I went to a funeral at a Catholic church, and my grandmother always, we were made to, I guess, because if I could have, I would have sat in the back. But she made us come up front. We could not turn around in church. If the door opened, we focused on what was in front of us and what was going on in front of us. When it came to well, I hadn't any better sense. I walked on up front church. And I sat down, and they just kept looking at me as if, where did this animal come from? Where is she going? What is she doing there? And a nun, when we went to give the peace offering, I put up my hand. She would not take it. A nun. She would not take it. And the movies was segregated. Had to go up the back steps. I didn't go up it but once though. I had come home from high school, and this young man wanted to take me to a movie. My grandmother said I could go. And we went in Leonardtown, right on the corner, and he was going around the side. I said, what are we going around here for? He said, this is the way we have to get to the movie. I said, why can't we go in that front door? He said, we can't go in the front door. Well, he had come all the way to Leonardtown, down here, to carry me back to Leonardtown to the movie. So I went up these long steps. I said, I can't say I enjoyed the movie because I was tight. I was so tight up in my chest. And I said, but I appreciate, you taking me. But don't ask me to come here again to a movie. I will not climb those steps. The hospitals.
Well, and had you been to the movie before and gone in the front way? Or
no, I've never been there. I had never been to that movie because I always went in Washington to a movie. They were not. Mm-hmm. Okay. But they were, the Howard Theater, most black people went to it. Very seldom saw any white people in there. But I always went to a movie in Washington when I went to a movie, or Baltimore. And the hospitals, you had to go up the back steps to go into the hospitals. The stores. And right up here to Railers. It's not where it is now, it's where the True Value is. That was a store. Before they built that new store, it was another store there. And they had over the door, it had a little bar, a little room that was a bar, and over there said white only. And one day I was curious. I said, I'm going to see what's in here. And I went in there, and it was so dark. You could hardly see a person in there. In the bar, it was so dark. And then I came out, and the person who owned it wasn't the people here now, it was his brother-in-law that owned it. And he said, may I help you? I said, no. I said, I just wanted to know what was in there that only the white people could have. And he said, you want something? I said, oh, no. I don't want anything out there. And I said, I just wanted to see for myself. And, things were just, they were segregated, and just in those instances that I've mentioned, because I could go into a home when I was a little girl with my grandmother and played with the white children, slept with the white children when she went to deliver a baby. And, but I knew it was here. I knew segregation was here.
But that changed when you got to a certain age, or
well,
I mean, was that something that was okay because you were a kid, because you were a child?
Well, I guess it was okay because I was a child. Yes, it changed when I got older. It changed when I got older. And when I came back in the county to teach, it was still here.
Well, You know, let me ask one thing. When you said you went to the Catholic Church, and you said that you went down front and you couldn't turn around and look.
No. When I was in my church,
Okay.
my grandmother taught. Then when I say me taught us, would be whatever children were there. You didn't turn around in church.
Okay.
Okay. But when I went to this Catholic church to this funeral, I went on down front, and they looked at me as if to say, "What is she doing going down front?" And then when they would give the peace sign, and I turned to give my hand to the nun, she wouldn't take it.
Well, when did things really start changing in the county?
Oh, I was in the late 60s. In some places, it hasn't changed. Over in the 7th District hasn't changed too much.
Like, where?
Clemens and what else is over there? Clemens and not Longview, because that is mostly a black community.
You mean like the restaurants and things like that? Or?
Well, the restaurants have changed. The restaurants have changed because the people, some of the people. Did you go to the forums that they had at Leonardtown High School? Well, there was several rednecks in a group that I was in, and they are the same. I went to a home to get children to be vaccinated because they had not been vaccinated and had been coming to school, and the time was out, they had to be vaccinated. And I went over there, and I had been talking to the mother about the children had to be vaccinated before they came back to school, and if they didn't, hurry and be vaccinated, then I'd have to take them to court. And these are little children. And this day I went over there, the father was home. Very big, tall man. And when I drove up, he came to the car. And I said, Mr. So-and-so, I said, I came to see if you had appointments for your children to be inoculated. And he said, no, they're not going to be. Then I said, are you ready to go to court? I said, because they've been out of school too long. The time is up. They either have to be inoculated or we go to court. No so-and-so nigger's gonna carry me to court. And I said, all right, I'll give you until Monday. If those children are not in Dinard school on Monday, we go to court. I started the car up. He was still swearing. And I started the car up, and I just left. I went back to Dinard, and I told them what had happened. I said, I'm calling over here Monday. If the children are not in school, then we go to court. And the little lady, she seemed to be, tried to be nice, but she was scared. She was scared of that man. And I said, she called me. I don't know where she was, but she called me. And she said, Ms. Gaskin? I said, yes. She said, my sister's going to have them inoculated. I said, all right, when is it going to happen? She's going to carry them to the doctor Monday. I said, all right. I'm waiting until Monday's over. I called Dinard on Monday, and the sister had them inoculated and brought them into school. And it's still, you can see them. And I said, I'm sure some in other areas of the county, but I know that there's still some in the 7th district. I had one call me at the office and said, my child needs shoes. I said, all right. I said, when can the mother go with me? I said, I'll gladly pick up the child and carry him shoes. He said, what color are you? I said, green.
That's great.
So, I mean, it's still in the county. They're trying. Some of them are really, really trying. Now, I know, like the store up here, they no, Aurelius. They were really the older, the parents. But those boys had brought them around. They had brought them around. And as my grandmother used to say, it's just much different between them as it is chalk and cheese from what they used to be. And see, that was the thing. If you could get the children together, because it was coming from the parents to the children. The little children in 1st grade, and said, what do they know about color? Children are children. And
what about the store that still has a Confederate flag in there?
Oh yes, I don't even go to buses because it's off the off the record. Yeah, they just, no. And we have his daughter on the Board of Education.
Oh really?
Oh God, what's her name? One of the new ones elected to the board. Lala. Her husband teaches at Esperanza.
Well, yeah, that's what everybody says. You can change the laws, but it's hard to change
Mm-hmm.
people. But that's good that you feel that there are people who really
have changed. Yeah, there are people that have changed. Because, you go in the hospital. Bernadette was in the hospital she had been operated on. And Dr. Bean was with another patient. They had the curtain drawn, and I could hear him say, well, she has the right to be here. Color has nothing to do with it. She has the right to be here. I said, oh, she doesn't want to be in here with my daughter. So the next day I came, she was sitting in the chair, and I said, Lord, please forgive me. But I went over to her, and I said, how are you feeling? Are you feeling all right? She said, I said, or are you feeling better? She didn't say anything, and I put rubbed my hand down. First come, I said, now if you go away from here because of my hand on you, you go away from here today. And I put my hand on her, and she said, I feel much better. I feel much better. And I said, Lord, I hope she isn't having a heart attack. When we went to Israel, the same thing happened. We were sitting, we were in LLL flight. And there were 3 in a seat. There was a white lady sitting here. I had the middle seat and a white man over here. And the white lady tried to get the stewardess to move her. And they wouldn't move her. They kept saying no. Then she, got to one of the men and she asked them to move her. And they didn't move her. She said, no, you have to sit there. That's your seat. And so we went on during the night. And the tray that comes down in front of you, she had pulled that down, and she was. And I said, "I wonder if she's all right." I took my hand and put it around her neck. I said, "Are you feeling all right?" "Oh, yes, yes, yes. I'm just tired." I said, "Oh, I thought maybe you weren't feeling well."
Did she pull away? Or?
And she pulled away first. And I talked to her just as softly. I said, "I thought maybe you weren't feeling well."
Do you think that is it more of a challenge, or is it more because you think that will really help somehow, make them feel? Or I mean, you know what I mean? Is it a challenge to them to touch them, or is it because you think that touching them will really? I want to say, even if it is a challenge, it's helpful. But I mean, or do you think that's because they'll feel differently just by being?
I really think that if you can touch them and they feel that you are a caring person or that you care, that it changes them. Because when they brought us our breakfast, she said, "Do you like everything you have on there?" I said, "Not exactly." She said, "Would you want them to get you something else?" I said, "No. Thank you just the same."
Isn't that interesting?
So.
Okay, when you said, I couldn't get the word, when you said, in the hospital that you touched the woman, you said, "I hope you don't."
I said, "I hope you're feeling better."
Before
Are
that,
you feeling better?
You said something else. Well, I'll listen to it again. Just couldn't understand one of the words.
Well, because I said, "Well, I hope this doesn't give her a heart attack."
Yeah, no.
Because that's what I said.
First thing you said. That's great. Okay, let's pause for a minute. Okay. Well, how do you feel about living in the county? You've obviously chosen to live here. If you've lived in a city, which do you like best and why?
I like the country. I never liked the city because I was afraid in the city. It's quiet, and you get to know people. There's a little bit of closeness, although it's not as close as it used to be, but I just feel a little freer in the country. I never did. I even want to live in the city, even though I, went there for vacations. But when that was over, I was ready to come home. I didn't even want to go to Lexington Park. I don't want to live in Lexington Park.
Okay, well that's important. Okay, so you like those differences between. You think the people are different?
I think they live a faster life.
I mean, in terms of in the county or in the country versus in the city.
I think there's a difference. There's a difference in the city. Like you can see the difference in the people, especially in the children that come from the city. And move in the area. Once, if they stay here long enough, they get used to being in the country. But there's a difference in city people and country mouse and city mouse.
What do you think of the direction that the county is going in today?
I think people don't have as much to say about what's going on as they used to. But they seem to be coming back to it somewhat as to rules and regulations, government, you know, people are not informed. Things have been done before they've been informed about it. Things have happened that, you weren't aware of. It could be our fault or people's fault as well, but, excuse me, there are some things that, is being done, and I guess they can't wait to inform you of everything because of the size, the way the county is growing. But there's not as much cohesiveness as there used to be.
How have you contributed to the county through your work, paid and volunteer, your family, your citizenship, your politics, your values?
Oh, I belong to the Democratic Party, too. I forgot all about the Democratic Club. And there was another meeting I was going to.
I also asked, what recognition, awards, and certificates have you achieved?
Oh, boy.
This could take the rest of the tape here.
I think I've made a difference in the county by my working with the children, with families. I've taught quite a few children in the county. I work with quite a few families. I worked in juvenile court for 10 years. I was the link between the court, juvenile court, and the Board of Education. I went every Friday to juvenile court and worked with the children that had problems. And we were with juvenile court. And I think I've helped to make a difference.
And you were responsible for Green Holly?
Yes, Green Holly School was the first all-state funded school built in the state of Maryland. And that took the children out of the buildings that had been discarded, and they had a full program there at Green Holly. And I hope I've made a difference anyway.
Well,
Because, for the years that I had been involved with them, 4 to 6 years, and I hope I've made a difference.
are there awards or certificates that, is there recognition that you've received that you haven't talked about?
I received I received so many awards. I saw them other day, some I didn't even know I had.
What were some of the most meaningful ones, maybe?
I received an award from the governor for achievement and working with the handicapped. I received awards for community service from the Masons. I received an award, community award from the Eastern Stars from the state of Maryland. Um, I received an award that was from the Masons. It was over in Calvert County for my full community work, volunteer. I received awards for volunteerism.
Did you belong to organizations like I think it's Citizens for Progress or Community? Community. I can't think of the exact name. Community associations. Any particular community associations or citizens groups that were more politically inclined?
Like the Democratic Club.
Or okay, Democratic Club, or trying to think of the name of that group. They put out the cookbook on 300 years of black cooking in Southern Maryland. Okay.
And that doesn't ring a bell.
I was thinking about some of the groups that were really active in the civil rights and integrating the theater and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I worked, with them and helped with that. I belonged to the Citizens, the scholarship, Citizen Scholarship. I was once a member of that. And but I have so many of them. I have them piled up, but I can't think about them now.
You have to write them down.
Mm-hmm. I had to write them down because I had to put them. And I don't have anywhere to put them.
Okay. What do you consider to be the most valuable thing you've ever had? Something you could not have done without in your lifetime?
Something I could not have done without. No.
That's kind of a hard. There are different ways you could interpret that.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things you actually said about that you put that way was about your relationship with Jesus, with your relationship with God, your religion.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that I couldn't.
way.
Yeah. That's one thing I couldn't have done without.
Or you could look at it in terms of something that you, or a more material way of looking at it, or you could look at it as your work or your family. I don't know. But I think if something doesn't just, pop out.
Well, as you said, if I couldn't, I couldn't have done without. I don't know what I would have done without having the opportunity to teach and to work with people. I'm a people person, and I just like being with people, and I like working with people. Regardless of what I'm doing. Nothing's too small, too low for me to do, as long as I'm with people and helping people.
I guess you couldn't have done without people.
And I couldn't done without people, and couldn't done without the Lord and my work as a teacher and helper.
Okay. Have you done everything in your life that you wanted or planned to?
Not everything. I want to go to Alaska.
Okay.
And I want to go to Hawaii. I don't know if I'll get there, but I'd like to go there.
If you could go back and live your life over, what would you change?
You didn't want me to answer that. I wouldn't have gotten married so young. I wouldn't have done that. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything in my life that I would have changed. I wanted to do all the things that I've done. I mean, I've never been forced to do something that I didn't want to do. And I don't know anything that I would change. My life has been a success. It's been a happy one. And there's nothing I would change.
Hopefully it continues for a long time. Okay. You may have already answered this. What do you think have been the biggest changes in the county in your lifetime?
The county, the county area, physical area of the county, the highways, the developments, the base, of course. Brought many changes, but the highway and all these people and the changes in the schools, facilities I'm talking about now, the school facilities, and even the churches. There's so many more churches. Once it was a Protestant Catholic community, the county, but now there are quite a variety of religions. And just the physical makeup of the county has changed tremendously.
Can you share old stories about what life was like in the county for your parents? And I would add, how far back could you talk about life in the county? Can you talk about what it was like for your grandparents, or did you hear? Have stories been passed on even back further than that?
Well, I remember 2 great-grandfathers, 2 great-grandmothers, and then my grandmothers. Well, let's see. Yeah, great-grandfathers. And they mainly travel horse and buggy. They lived in homes that had the wood stoves for heating, oil lamps, and
do you know if you had did your ancestors go back to when were there any that were slaves in St. Mary's County?
I know that my one great-grandfather was part slave. It seems as though it was the ending of slavery that he became a slave. Not very long. He used to tell me the tales of how the master would put them up in a hut, he called it. This is where they lived, and they had seemingly the slaveholder was sort of good or lenient with him. I don't know if it's because this was becoming the end of it or what, but he talked about having to get up in the nighttime and cut wood and do all this so that there would be heat.
And did your grandparents talk about their parents and grandparents and tell you the stories of their lives so you could talk about all that if you had the opportunity?
Yes, well, I mean, somewhat. They talked about having to work on the farms and live on people's farms, and what they had to do, the work and all that, and the children, how they had to take care of the people's children, how when they started, they were married and their children were born, that they had to live in these close quarters, with their children. And then their children became helpers as they grew older. They worked on the farm and in the houses and like that.
Okay, how did black folks get their news in the county when you were growing up?
Battery radio, on his feet, about like that, and had a battery in it, and we'd hear the news from out of the county. There wasn't a station in the county, but this would be far away that you would hear the news from a battery radio.
Did they, were there newspapers? Did they read newspapers?
I think they came out about once a month. We'd get a paper. What was prevalent was the Afro, and it would be sent down from Baltimore to one or two people that would distribute. You'd buy the Afro, and most of that's what was the paper.
How do countians get their news today?
Oh my, telephone. Okay. They get it over the television, from the radio, from the newspapers.
But the telephone.
The telephone that's the fastest. That seems to be the fastest.
Okay. Well, we just made it, I think. Just take that over. There might be other things you think of that you want to talk about. I'm free.
Okay. All right. I'll get those awards together.
Yeah, they probably would like to have, the group would probably like to have that.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose we're going to put something out, printed form, and it would be helpful to have.